I think there's two different parts that we have to keep in mind here too that are useful. One is that there are people who like to use an instance like what happened in Ferguson to make some point that, see, this illustrates all the things we've been fighting for the last 40 years. And so we have to keep that in mind. But then secondly, or, the other side of that is we also need to keep in mind that what these individuals are arguing for, there's either, if there's not some reality to it, then there's at least some reality that people are feeling this way. So again, I'm not making a judgment about the reality of either racist policing or, abuse by police. And I'm not making a judgment about that. But if there's a segment of your population that feels that is the case, it's in our best interest as a community and as a police department to respond to that in some way.
So Dr. Mike.
But when you, wait, hold on. When you say, I'm sorry, Lauren. When you say respond to it, you mean get no conversation about
Acknowledge it.
Right.
And then what are you going to do about it? Right? Are you going to close up and say that, no, we're perfect, we're fine, there's nothing we can do about it? You just live with it? Or are you going to open up a dialogue? Or are you going to look at maybe ways that we could train differently, understand differently? And I'm not saying it's necessarily, in Ferguson, they talked about, well, hire more Black and Hispanic police officers.
That's not the answer.
No, and I'm actually working on a paper right now where I find that that's one of the least supportive items that police officers will agree with when it comes to how they could better work with the community. They're not worried about diversifying. And this is from individuals who are Black and Hispanic. So there are, but the idea is, again, there may be no truth to the issues that people are raising when it comes to the profession. There's probably some truth to it. So we need to acknowledge whatever that truth might be, but we also need to look at the fact that, hey, there's people who think this, and they're a vocal part of our community, or they're a large numerical part of our community, and that means something to us as a profession. And too often, I think, historically, police have not been open to that type of dialogue. And part of it goes back to this idea that you said before about there's so much emphasis on the danger. It's one of the most defining aspects of the profession is that, I need to make sure that I come home safely. And that is all consuming sometimes. And it is. I mean, we know that there's a lot of potential for danger in policing. The likelihood is low, but there's a lot of potential, and that we need to make sure that we're keeping police as safe as possible. But we also have to acknowledge that, they are a governmental institution that needs to act more legitimately and be held responsible for policing in a way that upholds rights and keeps individuals safe. Lauren?
Oh, now it's my turn.
I'm sorry. I'm such a man.
You've been thinking too long, huh?
Well, Dr. Mike, tell me about some of these worms in the orchard, so to speak.
Okay, yeah, I mentioned one before, and one might be, again, the way that you're supervising individuals, and either lacks supervision or supervision that is encouraging certain behaviors that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the community. So as I said before, numbers, right? If you are, and this is what we saw, I think, in New York, if you're pressuring your police officers to get you citations, what they call the Form 250s in New York, where the stop, question, and frisk documents that they had to fill out, they're stopping Mickey Mouse, so that they were creating fraudulent documents. Other people would argue that they were probably also stopping individuals who they otherwise did not have reasonable suspicion to stop, which is, legal standard for making a stop. But of course, whenever it's the police officer's word against the individual citizens, we're always going to trust the police officer. That's one way. Another way may be, again, in training, and not giving officers the appropriate training in either sensitivity training or understanding of the community that you're dealing with, that it might oftentimes be very different from you and your background and your understanding of police authority. And then there's also more of the tactical type of responding to situations. So you said before, Mark, that they're not bad cops. And I think I'd clarify that, and again, not speaking to individual cops or individual circumstances, but rather I would say that for the most part, they're not bad people. But I think there's some cops who make mistakes, and they're not bad people, but they're not a great cop because of either the supervisory aspect or because of the lack of training. and just like you said, you might have a bad waiter at a restaurant. They're not bad people, but I was a waiter. I was terrible. I'm not a bad person, but I spilled drinks on people.
Get your thumb out of my soup.
I spoke to people in ways that were just very short, and I wasn't a bad person. I just wasn't trained well, wasn't supervised well, and I think that's a lot of what we have to keep in mind with police is they're not bad people. And like you said, I believe that Darren Wilson did not go to work that day saying that he wants to kill somebody. I don't think Pantaleo, the officer in New York, I don't think he said I want to kill somebody today, or any other day for that matter. But I think in some cases the cops just have not been trained to the best standards, have not been supervised in ways that speak to a department-wide type of blemish. And thankfully, because of the circumstances a lot of police deal with, the lack of effectiveness of that police department doesn't necessarily come to the forefront because they're not dealing with a lot of big problems, but sometimes it does.
So what can we do as private citizens to help our police force actually do their job better, really? And
Jimmy thinks that we should all read Orwell.
I'd like to start by maybe having every single citizen in the United States read my text. No, I'm just kidding.
It's available on Amazon.
Not
the Kindle.
I mean, feel free to read it if you'd like. But first of all, again, understanding, being open to the other perspective. And so if you're in the community and you think that police are abusive and police don't respect you, again, that may be based on some reality of either firsthand or secondhand knowledge. But nonetheless, step back and say, what am I dealing with in terms of the police profession, the danger that they face, the fact that most of them are good people and they want good things for me and my community. So that, again, empathy on both sides, first of all. Secondly is transparency, I think is important for police departments so that we as citizens are demanding that of our police departments. And it's transparency in cases where, there might be the police department is dealing with a situation where a police officer is accused of some wrongdoing. And I think we need to, as citizens, right, one of the founding principles of Anglo-Saxon policing is that the police are the community and the community are the police. And too often we see those two groups as completely opposite. And we need to realize that they're one and the same, and that police need to be accountable to the community, and we need to demand that accountability of them. And in the end, it makes police jobs easier because they're not being mother effed, they're not being disrespected by citizens, right? And I think all of us in this room respect police, right? We have good reason to. Our individual experiences and the experiences of our families have been mostly positive experiences with police. There are groups of people in our society who that is not the case, right? Either at the neighborhood level or at a community level, where time and time again, historically, certainly not so much today, they have not had that same type of positive relationship. And so, and the police too, right? They've not always felt that the community is there to help them. The community wants to support them. Just this week, the Washington Post put out an article that said 37 people in the Maryland, D.C. area have been killed since, I think, 2004. And they were killed because they were either helping police or suspected of helping police solve certain cases. So, you add that to kind of the stop snitching mentality, this idea that the community is not going to work with the police. And then lo and behold, you have police saying the community, doesn't care. They don't care about themselves. They don't care about keeping themselves safe. They certainly don't care about us.
Well, I mean, there has to come a point where, the police as an organization or as an entity, sometimes, just throws their hands up in the air and they're like, we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole Jerry Maguire thing. Like help me, help you, and if nobody's willing to do that and they constantly look at the people it's the whole thing where like everybody looks back and they're like, F the police.
There are
somebody's in my house. I need the police.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're absolutely right. That's a real feeling that police would have. That here we are. We want.
It's got to be incredibly frustrating.
Exactly.
I guess is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I'd imagine it is.
There's some places in the United States that are still like 19th century, in terms of they don't have a police force. They are still run by the neighborhood. And it's kind of got to be difficult for the police to have to deal with that when the community is not entirely.
Well, I mean, the other thing too is like, you know, I think, what's it, one police officer per 1,000 citizens or more?
There's about 1 million police officers in the United States.
So that's one police officer per 480 people.
You're making that up.
It's after 8 o'clock. I can't do that math in my head.
You're making up that.
I mean, it's grossly disproportionate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But at the, you know, and the other thing too is like, you know, isn't the goal to have little to no crime as possible?
That's the idea.
That's another founding principle, right? Is the measurement of whether police are being effective is the absence of disorder and crime, not the police activity. So it's not about police. It's not about police doing patrols. It's not about police writing tickets or making arrests. It's about the lack of disorder and crime.
But some people just want to watch the world burn.
I know that, and that's why you're never going to have, like, you know, there's no organization, no group, no job, anything out there that is 100% good. You know, whether it's teachers or, you know, there's some bad teachers. There's some bad people who salt the roads. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
there's nothing 100% perfect. You know, and I can't think of, you know, it's like, you know, politics. You know what I mean? It's not that, like, why is the first thing to be like, if something screws up, it's like, oh, you know, we have to get rid of the head guy in charge. You know, it's not. You want the guy who knows all the problems there. You want the guy who can handle it. Like I think they were calling for the chief of police of Ferguson to just stand down, and I'm like, that doesn't help, because he's the one who knows what the hell's going on. Like, he's the one with the firsthand knowledge on how to fix it. You know, so maybe it's a better interaction. Like, okay, the course of action that we're pursuing right now, that we have been on, the road that we've been on, we need to put the brakes on a little bit, reassess, and figure out what we're doing. Take a breath. Don't be impulsive. All of these things that we're seeing on the news, all of these emotional things are based on emotion. They're not based on calm, rational thought. Why is it this way? Well, why isn't it this way? Well, what happened here? What truly happened here? What were the precipitating factors to get us to here? You know, we all know what happened afterwards, but what got us here? You know, a car accident isn't just a car. Like, something happened. Who wasn't paying attention? Who was driving too fast for the roads? Who was drinking? You know, it's not just a car accident, but in these situations, horrible things happen. And they're going to happen everywhere. My father's in the steel business. There's a lot of people who got killed with a beam falling on them through negligence or through just not paying attention or through, like, it happens, you know? And yes, should people be accountable, especially in, you know, in the public realm, which is, I mean, what they are, they're public servants that want to do this, you know, and yes, we should hold them accountable. But
and that plays into the higher standard thing we're talking about too.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah, they should be held to a higher standard.
They're at this level where we have to trust them so much more than I would trust the guy that salts the roads or the guy that, you know, stocks the shelves at a convenience store. Like, he's at this level where he's the guy who you know, I get, if I call 911, you know, I want a guy who's very responsible, who knows how to respond to that sort of you know, incident, to show up and handle himself in a way that's going to save my life or protect my family.
Absolutely.
Know? So,
you know, but we're also the same type of people who are like, Domino's screwed up my meal. Forget Domino's forever.
Well, yeah, but that's the general public talking. They just want to complain about anything.
These are the people that are talking.
Right.
You know, and
dominating the conversation.
They're totally dominating kind of like I do.
I understand this feeling.
Well, I mean, well, explain that then. Coming from, you know, I think you kind of agree with us, but, you know, differences are good amongst people, and you're a different in an amazing way.
Are you referring to my skin color? I think this is what started this whole thing. This is how this all started.
I didn't say that.
Let's put all our apples out on a row. This is how this whole thing started, really. And also the cigarette thing, because I wanted the cigarette earlier and I was just mad at myself. So I'm actually taking it out on you much more. So I kind of apologize for that.
Look, if you can stay, if you can better yourself through my faults, go for it.
Oh my goodness. my perspective of race and skin color is very bizarre because I am of mixed race and my father is of darker complexion from another country. So when I see other people being picked on for their skin color or where they're from, I take it a little bit more personally than I probably should, because growing up, I had an ambiguously, I had ambiguous identity towards different, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know,
Different types of heritages. So depending on what racial community I was in, I was either considered an outsider or an insider, or kind of both.
Or just a total outsider to both.
It was a bizarre way to grow up, being a mix. So when I see this sort of thing, I get hypersensitive. So I think what might be helpful in terms of preventing future anxiety towards police would maybe be to discuss some of the things that an average citizen might do to prevent being found in trouble with police. Like, what should we do if we're pulled over or stopped and frisked or anything like that? Like, what are common practices that we should be all familiar with? I think that would be very helpful for all of us to know.
Well, I think unfortunately the temperature has kind of moved into a way that if a police officer comes near you and just asks something as simple as, "Hey, what are you doing?" that whomever is on the receiving end of that, "Hey, how you doing? What are you doing?" immediately gets defensive. And I think that's where it comes in. You always see the asshole driving around trying to get through the DUI checkpoint without going, am I being detained? Am I being detained? Am I being detained? Show the guy your license. People behind you want to go places. Like, stop. Like, okay, can I see your ID? Sure. And then you have people making an example, comparing it to like Nazi Germany. Papers. It's not the same, man. Like, they just want to know who you are. Make sure there's no warrants out for you.
Basically. So,
you know what I mean?
I guess a good anecdote.
Yeah, it's an inconvenience, but it's an inconvenience. It's a minor inconvenience, so that one day you don't get shot,
right,
or robbed, or hurt, or beat up, or like. That's what it's a minor price to pay. There's no such thing as true freedom in this country.
And then that turns into a discussion of police resources and where they should be concentrated, because, when say a DUI checkpoint comes up, which, they're controversial in themselves, you have people who say, well, they should be out stopping crimes. Why are there's guys in Wilkes-Barre getting robbed right now, but, these guys are, downtown here, harassing just everyday folk, and, they should be out doing this. And, I see that point, but I also say, well, then, crime prevention is tough. How do you end up being in the right place at the right time in the same way that you can be in the wrong place at the wrong time and get robbed?
Right.
So maybe the police patrolling a certain area would be more helpful. I don't know.
But God forbid, I don't know who organizes the DUI checkpoints, right? But let's say, Carl is the one who, that's like my go-to name. I don't know why. But Bill's going to set up a DUI checkpoint. And he's like, no, we don't need to do it. We're not going to use the resources. People are bitching, blah, blah, blah. And that night, somebody who would have been going through that DUI checkpoint hits a family of people,
right,
and kills them. How do you the next morning justify that? And you can live in the worlds of what ifs and blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's preventing one crime or another. Either you're preventing that crime or you're in the other side of town hoping to prevent another crime. So what's more effective?
I think just pointing even those two things out kind of paints a picture of how difficult it is to do what they do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's easy for us to sit here and say, here's what they should be doing with their time, because of my personal experience or my personal bias. But it's another thing to actually be doing the job.
How much shit do the cops and the firefighters of Scranton go through? They're vilified.
Sure.
And it's all because of the wrong reasons. They're not out there.
And I saw that
with delusions of grandeur, like they're out there doing a job, but yet they're getting vilified for reasons that have nothing pertaining to the performance of their job.
Sure. Sure. I mean, I saw that firsthand as a reporter. That was when at the time that I was doing that beat. It was when city council was on one side and the mayor was on the other, and they were fighting over money and resources and everything else. And then the police and fire departments were fighting over their contracts and sued the city, and they won. Eventually they did win, and so they were owed a lot of back pay and a lot of money that the city did not have and was broke. So you had all these lawmakers in between between a rock and a hard place, because you want to obviously support these guys and you want to give them the money that they're owed and in many cases deserved, and then on the other side you're like, well, the city's also completely broke. So I mean, saying it is one thing, but actually having the resources to do it and to pay these guys is another. So where does that money go and stuff? So and then that turns into a discussion about unions and things like that too. Are the unions greedy, or are they just fighting for the little guy? And there's I saw both sides of that. In some cases I could see what the mayor was saying. In other cases I could definitely see what the unions were saying. But in any case, I felt the local media really did a poor job of covering the whole thing. I thought.
It was biased. It was
a complete disservice to both sides.
And I think that's what's happening nationally.
Yeah. And just seeing that on a small level kind of made me realize, what you kind of always suspect, that the mainstream media is much, much worse. And that's kind of what
I'm laughing because it's true.
That kind of confirmed it for me.
24-hour
watching how they handled things, and how it really turned more into about sound bites and about who's saying who about what, and this very childish back and forth, and very little distribution of facts and what was actually how much money is owed, why is it owed, let's break down what does the law say, things like that. If you asked your average person, that everybody had an opinion, especially at that time when it was a hot topic. But very few people could
screw them. That was
very
their
few
opinion.
people could rattle off those facts, though.
Yeah.
That it was mostly skewed one way or the other. And here's why I think that. And it was mostly because, well, the mayor has that smug attitude, and I don't like the way he says this. But the unions, it's like, oh no, they're greedy and they're filling their pockets. And it was like, because they're seeing the political cartoons in the newspaper with guys shoving money in their pockets, and it's like, well, is that really your educated opinion, or is it the way that the media is presenting it to you?
But the awful thing is it tarnishes the job.
Right. And, it made me, while this stuff was going on, while Eric Garner, Michael Brown, that all comes up again. Well, is the media stoking the fire because it's good news? Because it's good reporting?
No. It's being stoked due to the fact that it gets people talking.
Right. Well,
it's the water cooler talk. It's the trending stuff. It's the stuff that if it bleeds, it leads.
Bleeds, it leads. Yep.
People are going to look. No news station around here has ever opened up with kittens and puppies. It's always a murder or a fire.
Right.
That's it.
Can we do kittens and puppies next week?
Sure. I don't know how that helps.
And chocolate.
And chocolate.
And
a pizza
We're
party.
not going back to chocolate. I mean, what do you? Do you kind of share the same? Because what happens is unfortunately it's like we like the beat cops, like the cops that are out there, like walking the streets, riding the bikes, driving the cars, like they're not really the bureaucracy of it. They're the guys out there with like their life's on the line or whatever. They don't have the desk job,
right?
And that's not to condemn or say that the desk job guy is better than but like or the chief has a least hard job because he's not out in the middle of Watts. It's all a very difficult job because everybody has to balance the slope of like being, either political or being bureaucratic or whatever. And, what was the perspective for you from interviewing, kind of like, all the higher up guys and then going, I hate to say this, but street level and going out and seeing what it is. And, is there a difference is there a different view from the top to the bottom and from the bottom to the top? Because I'm sure a lot of the bottom guys are like, they don't know what they're talking about. And then the top guys are like, they're asking for crazy shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let me say two things. First of all, I mean, from what Rich was saying about kind of the lack of balance and perspective in covering these types of events and issues that pertain to policing. That's one of the reasons why I like doing these types of shows and these types of interviews, because I'd like to try to place things in a more reasonable, I hope, perspective about, the reality of what's going on and how we can see, both sides to try to come together in some type of happy agreement. I guess that's part of my being Libra. I'm kind of Libra to a fault, where I can balance both sides. And I like to be able to try to present that kind of for the common good, if you will. But to your point about the difference between kind of your line officers and management officers, that there certainly is, and the research shows that there's this street culture of being a police officer on the line, and then the management culture that they talk about. And it's funny because, there's obviously some misunderstanding between the two and some misperceptions over what the other is. And, police officers think that their supervisors don't understand them, and supervisors say that, they don't know what they're doing. And yet, supervisors were line officers at one time. And so of course they understand what police are doing, and they get what they're trying to do. But it certainly is, again, looking at the research, it certainly is a kind of a stressor for people, officers in the streets to say, if I have a supervisor who's, they always say, hang me out to dry, like who's going to hold me responsible for X, Y, and Z, when really I'm just trying to do my job well, that's a stress for me, if I misspeak or say the wrong thing. And that's why I think, again, we need to acknowledge that police will make mistakes, right? When you talk about the level of importance of people within the police organization, we know that the largest part of any police department is going to be their patrol officers, and we call the patrol officers the backbone of the police department, right? They're the ones who are interfacing with the community. They're the ones that have the most discretion in the types of ways that they're going to intervene in any circumstance.
Well, they're the front line, and they know what the mud smells like.
Yeah, they do, and they're the ones who are going to have to make these decisions. It's not a supervisor, it's not a chief who's making a split-second decision. It's a patrol officer. Mm-hmm. And because it's such a highly discretionary type of environment, we have to give them the proper training. We have to recruit the right type of people, and we have to hold them to the right level of responsibility while still acknowledging they're going to make mistakes. So I mean, that's kind of my take on the two cultures there of the line officers and the stress that they feel, and of course management, where they have people above them who are trying to tell them what they need to do, that they need to get crime down, or they need to put more of their officers in this area of the city because people are calling the mayor and saying we haven't seen the police. And so again, it's part of this impossible mandate that police face, that they're pulled in all these directions, because they're accountable to us as the public. Well, the public means a lot, right? The public means Joe, Q citizen. It means the mayor. It means your local church. It means your local pastor. It means your local businessman, right? Your local attorneys. I mean, and police have to try
no public, there's no cops. If you have nobody to patrol.
Yeah, I mean? But police have to respond to all those varying concerns.
Oh my God.
Limited resources, limited personnel, and limited patience, or even limited ability, right? They can't do everything that we want them to. And when in our society, the way we've set it up, and it's partly because of the invention of 911, is that when we don't know who else to call, we call the cops, right? It's not the Ghostbusters, it's not the mayor. We don't know who to call, we're going to call the police, and they're going to help us. And that puts a big strain on police resources, and we expect a lot of our police. I remember one police officer in an affluent town in New Jersey saying that they respond to calls of people who need help unraveling their hoses, their garden hoses, right?
God, to be shitting me.
You call, we come. Right, they're getting paid well. They have relatively safe jobs, and so in that community, in that specific department,
or the coyote took my cat.
Yeah, cat stuck in the tree. Right,
yeah,
Mrs. Orlowski's cat is stuck up in the tree.
In that situation, it's cheaper for the town or the borough or whatever to buy that person a new hose.
Yeah, you're right. And
see what I'm
that's a
saying?
whole other issue is that we
Instead of
expect
taking the
police-
resources away from the police department, it's cheaper to be like, I can't wrap my hose.
Here's a new one.
Here's
you go.
here's $40 because it costs us that much with
Right.
this guy's time.
I don't know. That sounds like Harrington Park. I'm going to throw them under the bus.
I can't say the name of the town, but the other side of that too is that we do. The police are there for us, and we need to work together to say what could we expect of you, and what do you expect of us as a community, and how can we work together to make sure that we're all living safe and orderly lives, because in the end that's all we want, right? Even in the worst neighborhoods in the United States, and there are some really bad neighborhoods that fortunately probably many of us have never been to, but there are neighborhoods that are burned out, that suffer from undereducation, underemployment, from years of systematic racism at different levels and from different sources, and in those towns though, where there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of criminals, most people still are law-abiding individuals. Even criminals, most of the time, are law-abiding, right? And so we need to acknowledge that.
That's ironic.
They pay their taxes.
Well,
They try to. They want to. Let's put it that way. I heard a story once, and I don't know if this is true. My a family friend knew somebody who worked for the FBI, and the FBI was looking for a certain individual. And this has to be like 20, 25 years ago, maybe. And the FBI and the IRS do not, or at least back then, didn't share information. They're two different entities. It's like kind of like what you have with the FBI and the CIA, where they're like, no, we got it. No, we got it. We're not going to work together. But this certain individual was selling drugs, and the FBI was looking for them. They couldn't catch him. Ironically, on the IRS tax return, under occupation, they put drug dealer. How stupid is that? But they paid the taxes on other income. And the FBI couldn't share the information with, and it wasn't until later. And now I don't know if this is an urban legend, but this is what I was told. It's, as long as you're honest on your tax returns.
You just have to declare your earnings. You don't have to say what they are.
I can't say what I don't have to say. I don't do my taxes. I'm just.
Oh my goodness. So I have a question.
No. That's not mean I don't do tax returns. I just don't do my taxes.
That's good.
Someone else does.
That's fine.
You just send it a
accountant.
big check
I
and
believe
hopes
you.
that it covers it.
Here is some glitter glue.
Stick a gum.
Picture of a unicorn
A picture of a unicorn and
and a
some
macaroni
fruit stripe
drawing.
gum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I have to reveal the other bias that I have before I declare this question, because in addition to my cultural sensitivity, I also come from a kind of a cop family. So I also tend towards sympathy for the police force. Do you think that the reduction in police funding and the reduction of pensions at all is swaying the quality of recruitment and retention of police force in certain areas?
That's an empirical question that I'm not familiar with research on that. Now, I mean, I could guess. If you're saying that that there's a police department that's going through contract negotiations, and you're saying that if they're coming out with lower pay in the end, and is that what you're saying? If that's going to affect the kind of, I would guess that in the short term, maybe, right? That there may be work slowdowns, there may be a bruise to their morale there, and we've seen that over the last few years, right? With police departments having cutbacks and having to backfill positions, which means essentially demotions for people. But I think in the grand scheme of things, in the long term, again, if we look at police as workers who want to do their jobs well, who want to get fulfillment out of their jobs, I think that any type of initial slowdown in their work, or any initial type of lack of enthusiasm in what they might be doing, would eventually, wear away. It is certainly possible there could be a tipping point there. I'm not saying that can't happen, but in the circumstances currently in certain departments that I'm thinking of, I think initially there'll be some reduction in the quality of police services, just like there would be in any other type of work environment. But in the long term, I think it would kind of even out. Did you have a thought on that you asked that question?
No.
It just seems like a pretty specific question that maybe you had certain thoughts.
That question actually, it stems towards a lot of other industries that are experiencing the same thing as well. There's reductions in pay across a lot of government jobs.
Exactly.
And it seems epidemic.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the new as people say. It's a new reality in terms of what we're dealing with economically. And it's, I should mention my co-author on this book, and now a second book that's coming out,
which is another Hunger Games book. It's
on police unions of all things. And my co-author John DiCarlo is a former police officer and a former police chief. He was a chief of a small police department, and he was an officer for 34 years. With
Is he local?
He's at John Jay College in New York.
Could we possibly get him in here to? Maybe someday down the road,
I'm sure
when you guys
Skype.
finish the book.
I'm sure he would Skype. Yeah.
Jimmy, are we capable of doing phone in?
We are now.
Thanks for the jubilance on
just,
that one.
Just now.
Yeah.
I've been looking into it recently.
We are now.
I've been looking into it recently, and I'm pretty sure we can do it. We just have to run a test.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if worse comes to worse, it would be nice to have Yeah,
I know who'd be open to that.
When's the new book coming out?
Well, we just submitted. We just submit the manuscript to the publisher last week, and so depending, they say 6 to 8 weeks for a turnaround. So hopefully, by spring break, it'll be out.
What a weird barometer to.
That's academic calendar.
Before I go to Cancun.
Yeah, before I head
with
off
my
to,
new baby.
Just in time for them to...
I'll actually be in Nicaragua for spring break.
Oh my goodness. Just in time to order the books for the fall semester.
Yeah, exactly. Put your book orders in, professors. There you go.
Yeah, do it early.
So, unless there's anything else we really want to get into, I think we should wrap up. But we usually I wanted to introduce this segment last week. We were running long, so I didn't bother with it. So this week we'll throw it in quick. We still don't have a name for it because I'm sure we have to come up with some kind of cheesy alliteration or something that will play into the readership. But we'd like to just acknowledge the fact that we do listen to our readers, and we do take every little bit of comments and criticisms and emails and everything into consideration. Even if we don't respond right away, because I've got a million other things going on.
Now, Mike, if you're not familiar with this is the part where we get to be judge, jury, and executioner.
Right. Okay. We just get to say whatever.
With internet bullying, we can take on anybody.
Well,
or internet positivity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we love our readers, and we get all kinds, just like anybody else. But I thought this one was an interesting one, and that's why I want to read this one. It was an email sent to me a couple of days ago, and it was entitled "Interactive Science Museum," and I was like, okay, interesting. So I'll just say the guy's name is John. I won't say any more than that. He said
John Phillips from last week.
It's not John
from
Phillips.
MCR sent an email.
This is just the kind of I'll just say the random things that I get, which this is pretty common.
You're ripe now. See, now that you've ventured on your own,
right?
You had some experience with it at the other place, but now you're like ripe for.
Oh yeah,
everything.
Sure.
Good, bad, indifferent, out there, in there. Crazy. Or good. I don't know.
Well, I ran a very, very short story. I was in Books A Million the other day, and the guy who came behind me was the guy who believes that Oliphant was built by aliens and the pyramids and all this other kind of stuff.
Jimmy?
Yeah, he's
Oliphant, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Oliphant was built by the Lord of the Rings.
It's not the Oliphants was a creation of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oliphant
is actually the center of the universe, if you do some research on it, because the way the churches are arranged in Oliphant, I think it's something based off of the
Seriously?
Yeah, it's something based off of the constellations that's
what this guy's claiming.
Oliphant, the center of the universe.
The known universe.
Yes.
But that doesn't take into account the rapid increasing expansion of the known universe.
It
nor
does.
The multiverse.
It takes that all into account.
It cannot possibly.
It does.
It's
mathematical.
No, it's
and
not. It's changing.
Lauren,
you
just
haven't
like
done the math.
Just like some people want to watch the world burn, some people want Oliphant to be the center of the universe.
And this guy does.
Okay.
And he's been written about
right.
before.
And you know what?
in
Maybe
local
it's not
media.
that he wants to. Maybe it really is the center of the universe.
Well,
it's something that you should at least research before
I'd
you
really
make a
like to.
decision
I'd really
on.
like to talk to NASA first before we talk to the guy.
Well, how
that
about we
books
have
$1
that
million.
guy in here?
The center of the universe.
the center of the universe?
Closer to
Yeah.
the Andromeda galaxy.
Wait,
than
Rich
anything
didn't,
else,
Rich
but we
didn't even
can't
tell his
actually
story
calculate
yet.
Oh, I'm
it.
sorry. I
We're
was
not
just
even.
so
We're not even the
excited.
center of our own galaxy.
No,
Well, we're only like a few miles from it.
but oh my
A few
goodness.
miles.
Okay.
Chipotle's a few miles away, Jim.
And that's in
Route
Dixon
6.
City too, isn't it?
All right, so
Long
okay.
story short, this guy is very nasty and very obnoxious, and he will do anything to come up behind you and whisper weird things in your ear
Like
and
what?
try to get you to listen to his little spiel about Oliphant.
Did he know who you are?
No, it's funny because I've seen him a million times. He never remembers who I am. It just like because he does this spiel to everyone, no matter who he can find.
So wait,
And
so
he
set
asks
the
you
scene. You're in line.
I'm in line, and he comes up behind me, and I can feel him there, and
Like
I'm
breathing.
I'm purposely looking forward to ignore him, and he's
You're looking forward to ignoring
Yes,
him.
I'm looking forward, like it completely.
Oh, okay,
ignoring that he's behind me.
Oh, my face just would have been on engage.
No,
Oh
because
my
I already have a million times. It's like trying to fight with a fundamental Christian or something like that. You're never gonna win. You're never, and there's no winning per se. It's just that they're gonna feel how they're gonna feel. You're gonna feel how you're gonna feel.
But
Never come out on top of one of those arguments.
Yeah, you're just gonna fight.
What if I drew diagrams?
No.
No, it's never nothing will convince him.
No.
So he says,
Were you
do
alone?
you want to know a secret?
Wait, were you alone?
And I said, "Oh, I've heard all of the secrets that you have to tell." And I don't want to hear your spiel again like a bad salesman at my door. Please fuck off.
Oh my goodness.
And that was the end of that conversation. And then he, stand there and mumbles to himself, and he gets real pissy because you interrupted.
That's what he said.
Yeah, well, he'll sit there in the coffee shop, and he'll say that to people randomly as they walk by. If you make eye contact with him, you're dead.
That wasn't
Where's
very
the police
polite,
then?
Rich.
I think I need to go there.
So, but I actually have I have his packet that he brought to the news organization that I was working for a number of years ago. So I'll bring that in for you guys, and you guys can look at some of the
You
stuff.
should post
that
it
he does.
online. I'd like to read that.
Oh yeah, it
Sounds like a convincing
some of
argument.
his stuff is online. I'm not sure if it still is. It was at one point. But yeah, he's a character.
Treasure trove of
So
entertainment.
in other words, what I was trying to say, and not go off on a tangent,
Sorry,
believe me,
man.
was we get all kinds in the media. So this was actually kind of refreshing. John says, I think something good for this area would be an interactive science museum. Maybe your site could get this idea going. It could be used by all the schools and adults in the area. With the space program moving forward, this type of museum could benefit school kids in the area. Now, good idea and not a bad suggestion, just not exactly sure what I can do about it, which happens a lot, where people think that if you're in media of any kind, that you have some sort of amazing pull with people, that I could just whisper in some politician's ear and then some grant just appears out of nowhere and we get $1 million science museum in downtown. Now, I'm not insulting John and saying that that's what he thinks, but that seems to be the case with a lot of people, where they think we can just change things. But I think it's a great idea, and considering we're such a town with so many schools, we have so many grade schools, high schools, and colleges, specifically colleges, that I would think that a science museum would go pretty far. But I find that most of the museums that we have trouble getting funding as it is, and have to constantly come up with, like the Everhart, for example, has done a great job in the last couple of years of coming up with really creative ways to get people there, and you still have a really tough time of getting people to show up. So asking people to build something else, whereas just one guy's opinion, just not.
It's a pretty broad brush. He just paid, like a science museum.
Right.
We need
exactly.
a planetarium, And
Yep.
then we need the hall of olfactory senses. And then we need
The Hall of Olfactory Senses.
yeah, we need to know how a smell is
Isn't
received
that at Willy Wonka's place?
into the nostrils and then translated to the amygdala to translate into a memory that is
All right,
tied to an emotion. But we should walk through it like it's a hallway
I
and
have the
touch
perfect.
the bits.
Sign me up.
I have the perfect answer for this. Do you know the Creation Museum
Yes.
in Kentucky?
Unfortunately, I'm aware of it.
If we build one here, but treat it like Disney World, I think people would have a damn good time.
Are you talking about a science museum?
Pseudoscience.
Anti-science.
It's more entertainment than science. You might be able to whip in a little message there, but
right.
I would totally go to that Creation Museum just to see Jesus ride a dinosaur. So if we do something like something so ridiculous,
Right. That people would just have to go
they
to it.
have to go.
Right.
Nobody knows where the Trolley Museum is.
But you know what? You always have to top it. That's the thing. Is once the shtick is over, once the initial, everybody reports on it, everybody goes.
Well,
whatever,
we do it.
You have to keep topping yourself. Okay. Well, now how do I top Jesus riding a dinosaur?
Do you know how?
How?
The elephant is the center of the Universe Museum.
Oh,
We'll get this guy involved.
Jimmy's the curator then.
Jimmy, would
No,
you?
the guy who
No,
has
Jimmy, you're
the
the
theory is
curator.
the curator.
You're the curator.
Quit
your job.
Let me ask you real quick. You would never have him on. And I don't. And I seriously I mean this sincerely. I would not have him on as to poke fun. I'd be absolutely curious about what he thinks.
I would like to engage him in a conversation about universes.
You can actually, there are videos online of him engaging with skeptics, and it turns ugly very quickly.
Does he get like loud and like
Well, let me put it to you this way: would you like to have someone who may or may not be mentally ill, and then start an argument with them, and then record it?
Well, it's like trying to get in an argument with a drunk.
Yeah. That's essentially what it is. After about 15, 20 minutes of you trying to say, well, all right, let me retort you with this.
But his reasoning is,
and him just yelling at you.
in his mind, his reasoning is sound.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
So interactive science museum, yay or nay, everyone?
Yay! Even
If I can walk through the
olfactory halls.
You enter through the nostril.
Yeah.
Is there going to be like a real nostril?
You can just walk through the nostril.
So I have to climb up the nostril.
No, we'll do it sideways.
Like in the Nickelodeon game shows, where you had to go.
Like
up
you
the
can't do that on
nostril
television, or no, Double Dare.
Double Dare, where you had to reach
That's
up and grab the flag and stuff.
Do
So
I
kind of like that?
Do I get dirty?
No.
I'd do it.
Yeah.
I'd be totally cool with that.
Okay, we should set that up in the hallway and.
Well, I mean, all we have to do is send Rich an email, and then it'll happen.
Right.
So,
Let's get some plaster. Let's get some plaster of Paris and some wire
Rich, you know what you should
frames.
really do? You should really get me $10,000.
To answer, John, thank you for your suggestion.
Respectfully.
Yes, respectfully, honestly, thank you for your suggestion. I'm not sure exactly how I would get that off the ground, other than just asking important people in the community, what they think of the idea and how to get that going. But
I promise you, everyone is going to go, that's a great idea. How are you going to do it?
That's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
It all falls back on you and finding funding, which is near impossible nowadays.
Yeah, this town needs to worry first about other things than, once we grow.
Yeah.
Once we become, the way we were when I wouldn't say the coal barons, but, before half the community left.
Yeah.
Which was 50, 60 years ago. When we get back to there,
sure.
I think then we can get an olfactory museum.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that's safe. But if there's money in the budget, I'm sorry, man. I'm going to get that guy as Elephant Center of the Universe Museum.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right.
Mike.
Resolved.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Yes.
you. It was a pleasure.
You did not have to do this, but you did.
I'm happy I did. I survived.
It's like showing up to like that. How old, do you have a daughter or another
I have a
son?
daughter.
You have a daughter? How old?
20 months.
Have you gone to any of those birthday parties yet?
I have.
Some of them are dreadful.
They're okay. I survived them.
Right. So you,
Yes.
ow.
Was
He
this
survived this.
Was this better than a child's birthday party?
They were similar on different levels.
Yeah.
Different levels.
That's fair. That's a fair statement. You're middle of the road. You're very fair to everybody. I like that.
Thanks, Rich. I tried.
All right. Well,
I was gonna say something and I just blanked. I just want to say thank you, man. You know,
You already did.
because you're bringing.
But-
I know,
yeah.
but you're bringing like this perspective that a lot of people, don't really get, and I think it's important. And I look forward to maybe around spring break time
There we go. When I get back.
when you get back
be
from
nice and tan.
Nicaragua.
so thank you, Mike Jenkins. His book is Police Leaders in the New Community Problem Solving Era, and he has a new one coming out soon. So check out Amazon for those. And he is also at the University of Scranton. So if you end up being a student there, take one of his classes. I'm sure you'll appreciate it.
What do you do? Criminal justice there?
Criminal justice and policing.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. So thank you guys for listening. Obviously we touched on some hot topics tonight. So whatever you think, please let us know. If you have any other ideas for museums in the area, please also let us know that. And thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys. Lauren, you want to
Danke.
say thank you?
Danke.
Jimmy?
Thank you.